Hello friends. Ben Hogan, by his own assertion, was the first person to talk about the plane of swing. It has been spoken of relatively little by the authors and champions preceding him in the history of the game. And he devoted a good bit of the third and the fourth chapter, the backswing and the downswing, in his wonderful book, The 5 Lessons, to this topic. Now, he talked about the plane of swing being described as a pane of glass where the bottom edge is sitting on the ball with the bottom edge in line with the target, and that there'd be a hole in it where the head would stick out and the pane of glass was of course resting on the shoulders and going up on that angle behind one. I normally talk about a wagon wheel leaning on the wall behind. Similar idea. Now, he acknowledged that the hands start below that, although it varied a little depending on your dimensions. If you were taller, they'd be close to that line, that plane, and if you were shorter, perhaps lower. Now, the perfect example of having the arms and club on that plane of swing right from the get-go is fairly rare, and of course I think of a great champion, Bryson DeChambeau, and a wonderful golfer called Mo Norman from Canada many years ago. So unlike those two, where the arms and club are essentially both set on that pane of glass, everyone else has their hands below it. And he actually advocated that they stay that way. Now, it's interesting that earlier in the book, he recommended that the upper arms be pressed against the body and held there firmly, and that both elbows look at their respective hips. Now, he was notoriously interested in trying to avoid hooking because he couldn't win until he stopped hooking. And so he would then roll the club to the right. And that sort of opens up the club face and takes the club away low and inside. And he thought that by the time you got to about hip high, your arms and club would be parallel to that pane of glass. Now, I really don't know what that means because I can't seem to make that work. So what really matters is what happens at the end of the backswing. He didn't like the idea that you'd lift up through the pane of glass and above it, although his arch rival Sam Snead, who also took the club away low and inside, as they call it, did lift the arms up quite evidently to get ready for the downswing. And what do I mean by that? Regardless of these details on the takeaway, the whole idea is to get into a position as you start the downswing that has this assembly of different sized rubber bands all pulled in the right direction, in other words, gathering their forces and then delivered. And the modern golfer lifts the arms and club off that pane of glass on the backswing and then reassembles it as they start the downswing, just like Hogan and Sam Snead did, but from the opposite direction. So Sam Snead and Ben Hogan were in low here beneath the pane of glass and then assembling on it to come down. And essentially that meant that the body turn and the back were being readied to apply force on the downswing, whereas the modern champions have lifted off the plane of glass and then returned back down onto it. And essentially they're tensing up rubber bands in the front of their chest and between the shoulder blades. And as a consequence, the timing of when those rubber bands fire is different. They're assembling that stretching of those rubber bands as they start the downswing. The modern champion, Hogan, and his contemporaries were essentially doing it at the end of the backswing and then having to almost wait and bring the hips into the downswing by turning them to the left and shifting the weight so that they didn't waste that energy prematurely. So that's the difference between what are commonly called the classic swings and what we see nowadays with the great champions.